I do try and avoid getting hangovers these days. The hangovers are much, much worse these days.
Welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed as Richard and Zog discuss just how bad a hangover they've had already at Christmas dues. How are you, fellas?
Good.
Actually,
not hangover,
good.
actually.
Yeah. Are you
all right.
seasonally vibed up?
Jingle bells all the way. Or was it bar humbug? I've had more bar humbug.
Because this is the nearest thing we have to an official Gareth Jones on Speed Christmas show.
And can I just say, both of you, tonight, thank God it's them instead of you. That's my words of wisdom for Christmas.
And he
From
knows,
Saint
well
Bono.
said.
and he knows who's been naughty, and he knows who's been
Saint
good.
Nick.
Christmas is the season to be, not that jolly if you live in Brackley or work in Brackley in Northamptonshire, like those poor people at Honda. I thought we should open this show talking about the unfortunate thing that's happened to Honda. Is it unfortunate?
Yeah, absolutely. We love F1. You need enough teams in the sport to make it interesting and competitive. You need enough cars on the grid. Fewer cars is bad. Fewer teams is bad. I don't know whether fewer manufacturers is bad, because Honda departing does kind of underline the point that Mosley, amongst others, has made in the past, quite right, that manufacturers will come and go from the sport on a whim in a way that independent teams will not. They have no reason to be in the sport other than to improve their brand image. And if at corporate level, if at the boardroom level, somebody says, we're spending a lot of money here and not really getting results, they'll just pull the plug overnight.
Yeah. No, it is quite sad, isn't it? I mean, it's sad for the people who work there, because they were doing their best. I think something else that's unfortunate is the way the cars work for the past 2 years hasn't been great, but then we've seen that happen with other teams, and then suddenly they come right back. So it would have been nice to see that at some point. As a team, I think we quite like Honda, don't we? Because they have a great racing history, and they've got some really interesting things in their past, and they could have done good stuff in the future. It sort of seems a shame, and that's the thing. But they have dropped out of F1 in the past, and they have then come back again. So I wouldn't bet against them coming back at some point, because that's sort of part of what they do. I think that's the way they
have a history of changing their mind about things. They were in F1 in the 60s, pulled out. It's a bit like Renault, who were in F1 in the 70s and then pulled out. And they came back, a bit like Renault, as an engine supplier. Honda supplied engines, and of course, as Mugen supplied engines to Jordan, and were very, very competitive to a point where they thought, actually, it's worth coming back into Formula One. So they came back in as Honda supplied engines for BAR, and thought, right, this is it, we're on the way. They were doing quite well. But I remember being at a test at Silverstone in, 90-something or other. It was the period when Harvey Postlethwaite, which is difficult to say with my lisp, was still alive, and he'd been asked to look at a feasibility study of Honda coming back into Formula One, and they built an F1 car. They on their own, with Harvey, because he was redundant from Tyrrell at that point, and they put Jos Verstappen in to test it, and this thing was whizzing around Silverstone, seconds ahead of even the Williams at the time, which was the quickest car. And I remember having a conversation with an engineer from another team, probably Jordan, saying, Honda come back, they're going to win the World Championship inside of 3 years. And I had no reason to disbelieve that this was going to happen. So for them then to come back, to have some success with BAR when Dave Richards, or rather it was Honda at that point, wasn't it? They bought out BAR when Dave Richards was running the team. And then to think that they could manage without Dave Richards and come in, and then that's where things went wrong. It was heartbreaking, really. I mean, if anyone, they should be able to win in Formula One, really.
Well, knowing how to win in Formula One, and by win, you have to mean winning championships, races don't really count. There are only 4 teams in the sport at the moment who know how to win, and one of them, Williams, is kind of losing that memory by the year. There are only 4 teams who have won in the last, 25 years, really?
I think you're probably right. Certainly 20 years. Actually, 25 years since the 80s. Yeah. Williams, McLaren, Ferrari, Renault. You're right.
Since Renault/Bannerton.
Rosberg, Williams 81 or something like that. Yeah.
Well, I'd argue that all of the teams know how to win. You just have to get your car to go over the line first. It's just that most of them are crap at it.
One of the sad things, it seems to me, about Honda dropping out now is that they are at a point where rule changes and other changes for next year and beyond notwithstanding, they do really seem to be on the point of turning things around, and having been underperforming for for quite a while in terms of the money they put into the sport, you really get the sense that next year should have been a good one for them. And so to see them drop out at this point is a great shame.
Which brings me to Jenson Button, because Paul Rubens is out of a contract, but no one's told him. Jenson, on the other hand, is being incredibly loyal, and he's made this statement that he intends to stay with Honda. He's not considering a drive with another team. That would be Toro Rosso then, about the only other team who've got space. That he's going to stick with Honda. Now, he's either been fiercely loyal, which I really respect if he is, or he's got a genuine inkling that the technology Honda are developing for next year is going to be an absolute cracker if someone manages to come in and buy the team and get there.
But the problem is that if you're buying Honda now, you're buying a big fat team that's designed to work in sort of 2008 F1. It's not a team that's designed to work in the F1 of 2009, 2010, 2011.
This is what Dave Richards says.
When huge cost savings are supposedly going to be implemented. I mean, they will have to reduce costs to some extent, but maybe they will reduce them considerably. You're not going to be spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year anymore. That's the idea. But that's the kind of team Honda is. If you're going to go into F1, you want a smaller team.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. So it means increasingly likely that someone would buy Honda then, do you think? But that also makes it all the more curious what Button's up to. There's this fierce loyalty to Honda that God knows where that's going to take him, because it just seems odd.
Yeah, once again, I can only apologise, madam. I can assure you that we at the Leaning Tower of Pizza pride ourselves on our prompt delivery, and... Well, no, you see, the problem is it's this delivery rider, he's actually new, and... No, of course. Oh, no, I'll be having a word with him as soon as he gets back. I am very sorry. All right, cheers, bye. Oh, right, speak of the devil. Where the hell have you been? I've just had a lady from 26 Langley Gardens on the phone. She says her pizza was stone cold. And frankly, I'm not surprised, since it seems to have taken you 2 hours to deliver it. What the bloody hell's going on, Jenson?
Well, the team worked very hard this weekend. I'd particularly like to thank all the guys at Honda who built my 50cc moped. But, there were problems throughout the delivery. The track was very greasy. After my first pit stop, I was getting severe understeer. So I went back into the pits and my chief mechanic did all he could.
Pits? Chief mechanic? Track? Jesus, Jenson, we have been through this time and time again. Right, 1, the petrol station next to Netto is not a pit. Number 2, your friend Terry is in no sense a chief mechanic.
Well, he works at Quickfit.
It's irrelevant. And furthermore, the ring road is not, and never has been, a track. And that's why there's no need to do 68 bloody laps of it before you deliver the pizza.
Sorry.
Christ alive. This is as bad as having Flav as our head waiter.
Yes, you like tomato is nice. Make good sexy time with pepperoni. You're a very beautiful lady.
Stop touching the customers!
Merry Christmas from Gareth Jones on Speed, and Happy New Year from Sniff Petrol!
I was giving a sort of a nice big Christmas treat on Sunday when I went to the Race of Champions at Wembley. Have either of you two followed it on TV ever? Michelle? The race? It's a show.
Actually, haven't. No, I mean, I've seen footage of it, but I haven't actually seen the Race of Champions show, if you like. I haven't actually been aware of anyone showing it. But
no, I didn't know. Was it on telly somewhere?
It has been on Eurosport over the years, and I think Motors TV, because it was originally a French event set up by Michel Mouton, of course.
Yes. How did we nick that? Because it's been in London for a couple of years. Because it was in Paris, wasn't it?
And before that, I remember when I first started watching it, it was in the Canary Islands, outdoors.
Yeah, it started off somewhere quite sunny, and now it's moved somewhere quite miserable.
Yeah.
And it was blooming cold. I can tell you,
Hang on.
Yeah.
I know why they're doing that. These racing drivers, God, they're clever. It's because it's colder. Air's more dense. The cars will run faster.
Better competition. It was very good. I don't know if you follow it, but what are you saying, Zoe?
No, I was going to go off on a very boring tangent about how, that being the case, what you want is if you had some kind of double-decker racing whereby you could have a 2-deck racetrack, you'd want to be on the lower track
Because
hot
heat
air
rises.
Air on the top. There we go. But but I wasn't going to do that.
Anyway.
The Race of Champions. It was very cold, very, very, very cold, but I was there all day. It starts at midday and finishes about 7 in the evening, so it's a big day's entertainment. It's split into two things. They have this Race of Nations, which was won by, get this for a super team, Team Germany, made up of Michael Schumacher, who's quite good at driving a car.
I've heard.
Yeah. And the other one, Sebastian Vettel in his team.
Well, you've got strength in depth if you're picking the Germany team.
I thought you were going to say something else then.
And there was a lot of joy as well.
Stop it.
Yes.
Yes, and I noticed that these Race of Nations things were happening in KTM crossbows.
Yes, that's right. Or as even one of the people from Race of Champions themselves said to me, yes, they'll be racing the Expos. I said, they're called crossbows. Really? Yeah, they're called crossbows. People see the X in the logo and think it's called Expo. No, it's crossbow.
Well, fair enough, because that's what it does say. It's just sort of this syntactical mucking about, like BMW writing Mini all in caps and things like that, and the Alfa Mito with a full stop in the middle of it, and things like that. Just stop it, because I get very irritated by the spell check thing in Microsoft Word.
People don't have a spell and use grammar, basically.
Well, I get irritated by that as well.
I get irritated by that.
I find myself standing outside Zavi looking at their window display with CDs with an apostrophe on it.
All the time you see that
screaming at them.
No, but it's not fine. No, I will
It's
not.
not.
No, I'm not saying it's fine.
It's not.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
I am the fascist who goes into shops when I see that and say, guys, you realise you've got an apostrophe where it says MP3s outside or CDs and you don't need it, and they go, what? I know, I do that. I really do, Zog. I'm with you.
But there really is almost no hope. Several articles in the Independent website, for example, on the Independent website, in the last week or two, with the same apostrophe.
No.
Really?
It's almost always the it's thing.
It's! Where's the possessive? I tell you, there's no apostrophe in it because it denotes possession. However, if it was a person's name, then the apostrophe does denote possession.
So they drove the crossbow, and Germany won. It was fantastic. But then they come to the Race of the Champions itself, and the final was Coulthard versus Loeb, and David Coulthard got a great reception, and so did Jenson Button, who was taking part, actually. I mean, there's some great guys in this whole thing. Matthias Ekstrom was there, a couple of Americans I'd never heard of.
I think it's Matthias Kropstrom now. The X stands for Krops. Don't you know anything? God.
Very good. Tom Christensen was there. Who were the Americans? What was their name? Faust. This guy called Faust? Yeah, Tanner Faust. I'd never heard of him, I have to confess. And
he sort of came out of nowhere, slightly sulphurous air about him, maybe. I'm just guessing.
Adam Carroll was there for Team Ireland, who I really rate, with Gareth McHale, who's a rally driver I like to shout for because he was called Gareth. Ireland were eliminated in the Cup of Nations, whatever it's called. But the final, like I said, went down to Sebastian Loeb, or Sebastian Loebworm, as I call him, because I'm a Star Trek fan. Ferengi thing, forget about it. He's won it twice before, and Coulthard got him to the final. It went to 3 rounds. The first round, they were in ROC buggies, rock buggies, they call them.
Yeah.
Which are fierce. The second round was in the crossbow, the Expo, Coulthard stuffs it into the wall on the last corner.
Oh, that must have made him really X. I mean, cross. It is confusing, isn't it?
Loeb gets ahead, and then Coulthard pulls it back and crosses the line before
X is
Loeb.
the line.
So
No, crosses, you're right. This is really confusing.
Does that mean that it's Crossmas that's coming up on some people's
That's true,
sites?
yes. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
So it went to a third round, and again they were back in the ROC buggies, and this time Loeb did it, stealing it from Coulthard, which was a great shame because the whole place would have gone absolutely bonkers. You can probably hear in the background some of the Atmos and stuff I've put on of what a vibe it was to be there. But there was one driver there who I know reasonably well, actually, Jason Plato, who I've done charity races with before in the past and the odd bit of television, and so I thought I'd have a quick word with him. Well, I said to him, actually, that being at Wembley was the perfect job shop for him, and whether he was there chasing a job, and whether he'd asked Prio for a job driving in the World Touring Car Championship.
Well, to be honest, I'd rather stay in the BTCC. If I'm really honest, because me and Sophie just had our first little daughter, and I want to spend time there.
Congratulations!
Yeah, thanks. And also, my TV, my two companies that I run. I'm running around the world. That side of me, my brand, is going to suffer, and I like doing all of it. And also, I've got nothing to prove. Yes, it'd be nice to win the World Championship, but I've beaten all them guys before in the BTCC. Not to say, not to say I'd beat them again, but the whole BTCC works so well for me. And another thing to bear in mind is if I go over there, I'm just another driver. Where here, even though I say it myself, maybe I'm the big fish.
You got a great reception when you came out here. Seriously, it was one of the biggest shouts, which just makes you proud. Well done.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a stunning event, this, isn't it? And it can't be any better with Lewis here, the Formula 1 car.
It's tough out there, though, isn't it?
It is tough. I tell you, it's hard. And one thing I didn't realise until I actually got into it this morning, it's actually quite a lot of pressure, because we want to perform in front of all these people. We're representing our country, and man, do we want to beat the big stars, They
were commentating on the radio that you had a Scottish Saltaire on your buggy when you went out. That's going to confuse a lot of people. But we'll take it.
No, it's a fantastic day, and I tell you what must it be like to play football here for your country? What must it be like?
I was here about 3 rows from the front in July 1985 for Live Aid.
Wow.
Now, I think this compares to that. There's a good vibe, I can tell you.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, long may this sort of event continue, because it does, it's unique. Where can you get Michael Schumacher, Vettel, and a whole host of others?
And Jason Plato, my mate.
And now me, JP. It's great.
Nice to meet you again, fella.
And you too.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Keep it in your pants.
Hey, I'm famous for it.
Keep it in your pants.
Well, they've just had children, haven't they, the Platos? So maybe he's saying, look, I'm a parent, don't do it, Jones. Too late for me. I think it's
found that all a bit weird, but anyway, Plato, he's a good man.
He was really enjoying himself, and so did the punters there. It's a great show, but Terry Grant, the stunt driver, Zog, he was he was at the Johnny Herbert event that we did recently. Have you ever seen Terry Grant, the stunt driver?
Yes, I have.
Do you know what he does? Have you ever seen his act?
He is the guy in the Subaru, right?
He does. Yes, he does. Well, actually,
I might think also of Ken Block, the American guy, but Terry Grant does.
He did it in a Mitsubishi Evo.
Yes,
this
beg
time.
your pardon.
Yeah.
I know why, because I went to the Top Gear live show the other week, and I think it was Terry Grant who was in a London cab body that had been dropped over the chassis of an Evo 9. He was doing some amazing drifting and stuff there, and then sort of, but almost like drifting on the spot,
That's it.
Because it's not quite, donutting. It's not quite somehow, because the whole car seems to
You're kind
move
of
very
pivoting
slowly
around the front wheels. It's almost
but it's very odd.
Is Ken Block the guy who maybe I've seen doing that same sort of donut trick, but around a guy riding a Segway?
Yes, I think so. And he jumps Subarus in
nice
improbable ways.
trick.
Well, sorry, yes. So Eddie Grant,
Eddie Grant drove down Electric Avenue. Yes. Then Terry Grant was doing this wonderful thing where, first of all, he drove his Evo on 2 wheels round the entire circuit.
Really,
which is quite something.
I've always wanted to do that.
Now, he's never done it before. He says that was a first for him. It was great. Okay. But he also does this thing when he comes up in a little legend. You've seen the mini legends, these sort of curious, look like Ford pop body from the 1950s.
Oh, yes, I have, yeah.
It's got a Yamaha motorcycle engine or something. And he turns up, he does donuts in the thing, and it spins around its front inside wheel. And, this is fantastic. And then he climbs out through the window onto the roof, and he's got a throttle control there, and he's still going around. Everyone's going, this is amazing, what skill! And then he makes a big mistake in my opinion.
He does the move they now call the E17, and he runs himself over.
That's called the E17. That's very true. The Brian.
The Brian. Sorry, the Brian Harvey ran himself over.
That's very good. So, but then he makes a big mistake. He gets out of the car. He's on the roof. He jumps onto the bonnet of the car, then jumps off the car and goes and stands and watches the car do its donuts. Now, until that point, you think, what skill this man's got. He can control a donut on the spot. basically he's got a car set up to do donuts like that. So he just gets out, and that moment of doing that, he blew his act, I think. He blew
That's
it.
a good point, yeah.
Good entertainment.
Although I do still think it's an interesting window into the male brain, because what's happened is he's got his donut technique quite good, and then he's thought, I wonder what would happen if I tried to get out of the car now. Because that's the only way he can have discovered that he could do that,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Well, yeah, he must have tweaked the setup of the car so that it's just so that you can just, once you've got it in that dynamic state, it'll remain in that state.
But I just think it is a peculiar part of a man's brain that makes him do that. I think a woman would go, well, this is all pointless. I'm going to stop donutting now. It's not doing anything, is it? It's silly. But
Whereas
I don't
very
think of this
few points
because
which the male brain thinks.
the
this
male
is
brain
pointless.
thinks this is ever. But you go, wow, this is brilliant. But I bet I can make it better if I try and get out. There's a sound recordist we used on.
Marmite on it.
Yeah. I wonder if I could do this
more
whilst
volts,
burping
please.
the alphabet. There was a sound recordist we used on Top Gear who once was a bit bored in slow-moving traffic and thought, I wonder if I could drive my car cross-legged. And then he drove into the car in front of it.
If
bloke I was
I'm
at
getting
school
bored,
with.
I'll practice clutchless gear changes,
yeah.
or I'll practice left foot braking.
There was a bloke I was at school
not
with.
while you're on the
in
road.
traffic.
No.
Don't do it in Warren.
One of the big lads from a year above us at school, John Wilde, had a Metro GTA. Do you remember those? Quite racy
Yes, they
cross-country
were
cars.
quite. Yeah, my mate Anna had one.
And he had one of those, and he was driving down a very rough country track, not even a road, just sort of gravelly track. And he suddenly thought, I wonder how fast I could go down here before I lost control. So he kept going faster, and then he lost control and wrote off his car.
From personal experience, if you're going to try this kind of thing, do it on an empty, snowy and icy road, because the point at which you lose control is so much
You've got a
lower,
point, you might
and
be able to get
therefore
it back.
you don't. Yeah, exactly. If you're going to practice your sliding on a public road, empty, icy and snowy.
You're not saying that from experience, are you, Zog? You have
Not at all. No, I have no experience
okay.
of this whatsoever. I have never damaged any part of a car as a result of
Really?
playing about with sliding a little bit on icy roads. Never.
I think this is something we'll return to in the next show, actually. I want to talk about ice in the next show. But hey,
Nothing to return.
for the moment, Race of Champions was fantastic. It's not expensive to go to, although if you're going to drive there, it costs £25 English to park at Wembley.
What?
Outrageous, isn't it?
You could get, what, hour and a half's parking in central London?
Yeah, if you're lucky. Yeah, I think it's a bit shocking. But the finest thing, apart from Coulthard almost winning the whole event, which would have been great, Jenson Button got a great big roar as well. Hooray for that.
Good.
Perhaps the greatest thing was Lewis demoing a McLaren F1 car. He'd driven around in his McMurk 500 SLC with his dad. The McMurk, the McLaren Mercedes McMurk.
SLR.
What did I say? SLC?
Yeah.
Sorry, SLR.
That's the new one, though, isn't it, coming out? I thought you got an amazing scoop for that.
From the future. No, it was the McMurk, which is actually a Lola, I think. The body's built by Lola. Did you know that?
No.
Just the body? Or
Just the body, built by Lola, yeah. The carbon fibre tub is made by Lola. I've seen it, I've been there. It was there, Huntington. So he did that was good. It went, bruh! It makes that noise that the McMurk does. But then he went round in his MB423, and it made this sound. I'll play it for you now. We'll be quiet for a moment. Listen to this. This is completely surreal. I'm standing in the middle of Wembley, right by the circuit, as Lewis Hamilton comes past. Listen to this. He's gone in the blink of an eye. How he's managing to keep that car on the circuit without touching the walls. It's so narrow. That sounds like an air raid siren with all the echo as it bounces off the walls of Wembley here. That is a spooky sound. That is one of the scariest sounds I've ever heard. It sounds primordial, don't you think? Primeval? Primordial? Primordial, yeah. Primark. It sounds like a cheap clothes shopping centre. I think it's
very bad sore throat. No,
I think it sounds like sort of an electric pterodactyl, or such a thing.
If you heard that in the middle of the night with no context, you'd be absolutely terrified.
it would get you out of
Quite
bed.
an upsetting noise.
I mean, it's an incredible sound. I mean, you kind of get used to the sound of cars at the racetrack,
Yes.
which are fantastic. Love the sound. Racing engine, you hear it before a car can interview, see the car, and this sounds a racing wonder, but that is like the difference between your normal road car sound and what it's like when you go into a tunnel, and then race circuit sound, and the Wembley sound. You've got everything reflecting back, and it's sort of.
It was ricocheting around the terraces of Wembley there, and the crowd were roaring behind it. I tell you,
even more dramatic. Yeah.
It was all the hair standing up on my arm. And if you've got kids, actually, and you like a bit of motorsport and motortainment, because that's what it is, really. Yeah. Go next year. I'll see you there.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2008 FIA Formula One World Champion, Lewis Hamilton!
Gareth Jones on speed. I was there.
Now, Jenson, we're in my office, please, mate. Now, look, I think you know about the standards of service we uphold here at Froome Honda, and I've got to be honest with you, mate, I had a customer on the phone this morning. She weren't very happy with the test drive of the new Civic what you gave her.
Well, the guys in Swindon worked really hard on the car, and I have to say thanks to them, but, maybe it just wasn't our weekend.
Stop talking like that. It's just weird. Now, this lady, she says you insisted that she drive round and round the roundabout outside Sainsbury's, and you announce she's amongst the slowest 4 cars on the road and won't be going through with the next qualifying session.
Well, I think she was battling a real understeer problem, really.
I think she was battling a beardy West Country wazzock what isn't fit to work in an Honda garage. Jesus! It's not as if I ain't got enough problems with Felipe Massa as me bloody pump attendant!
Mr. Staplefoot, all is on fire again!
Not now, Felipe!
Sniff petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
And now on Gareth Jones on Speed, an apology on behalf of Richard Porter, by Richard Porter.
Welcome to this occasional segment on the show, and it's a slot that I like to call Things I Forgot to Turn Up For. And we start with Gareth and Zog speaking to you from the Japanese car exhibition at the Science Museum, which you may have heard on the last show. It was something that I forgot to turn up for. And they're actually talking here about the Johnny Herbert charity karting event, which I forgot to turn up for.
For the last, I think, 10 years, I've taken part in the Johnny Herbert Karting Challenge, which is a charity event that Johnny set up, I call him Johnny on first name terms, to raise money for various charities. And over the last few years, I've managed to persuade Zog to take part in it as well. And indeed, for the last 2 years, we've even fielded a team called Gareth Jones on Speed. And it was good this year, wasn't it, Zog?
As always, it was an absolute blast. It was a great thing to take part in. And I think we managed to give a pretty good account of ourselves this year. I think we can be reasonably happy with that.
I think we can be very happy with that. It's a 3-hour endurance race. There were 7 in our team. Our drivers were Carl Haxton, who's a bit of a karter, another karter called Jason Mills, and a young lad who's come out of karting and Formula Ford, and I think he's just moving into another category of racing now. You'll recognise the name, even if you haven't heard of him, Freddie Hunt, who raced with us last year as well. Son of
James Hunt.
Royalty, in my opinion. It was great having Freddie in our team.
Absolutely fantastic. But I couldn't help noticing, as last year, he was the last member of our team to actually make it to the circuit.
He's not unlike his dad in that respect. Watto Murray, who's on pole.
Yeah, we also had Ted Kravitz and Brendan Barnes.
Who's Ted's mate?
Mate of Ted's. And the two of us.
And we acquitted ourselves really well, because we qualified 15th out of 23 runners.
Which we thought was okay. You know, it's a competitive field. But we managed to finish 14th. We managed to make up 1 place on our qualifying position, which doesn't sound like much. But we were delighted with that, because, you've got some proper drivers there, plus people like me, and the qualifying is done on the basis of the fastest time of any one of your drivers. But, of course, your final position at the end of the endurance race is based on everyone's performance. And so, basically, we as a team managed to do justice to the fastest member of our team
improve on
qualifying,
that, yeah.
and slightly improve on that. So Yeah, so well done us.
And there were some top racers out there. Emanuele Pirro being one of the quickest, really.
Yeah. Le Mans winner Emanuele Pirro, Riccardo Patrese was there as well, Johnny Herbert, of course. And I mean, it was a particular thrill for me to be on track at the same time as Emanuele Pirro, who I've seen and cheered on racing at Le Mans.
Yeah, you and me both.
He's a motorsport legend. And when I saw him flying past me, I have to say, I thought, okay, I'll see if I can follow him for, see if I can pick up some tips on the line, see if I can get a quicker lap here. Within 2 or 3 corners, of course, he was gone. And I just didn't have the speed to keep up with the good guys.
I enjoyed meeting Riccardo Patrese for the obvious reasons, but also for another reason. I don't know if I've ever told you this. About 14 years ago, I bought a motorbike from Kawasaki, direct from Kawasaki themselves, because I'd used it on a TV programme. It was a KLR 650, great bike, and they sold it to me from the press fleet, and they said, oh yeah, this used to be Riccardo Patrese's motorbike. And I was never certain if it was actually true. They said, yeah, he used it as a paddock bike, they said, at the British Grand Prix. So when I met Riccardo, I asked him, I said, Riccardo, did you ever have a big Kawasaki as a paddock bike at the British Grand Prix? I said, yeah, it's quite possible, he said. Yeah, I don't remember for sure, but I remember the traffic was so bad, he explained, that he borrowed a motorbike and was using it to get to and from the circuit to the hotel. So the mystery remains. I haven't had it absolutely certified, but there's a strong possibility that is the truth.
The possibility remains. You haven't been able to authenticate it as the bike, but there was a bike, and it could have been that one.
It could have been. And the award for the fastest lap during the race.
Yes. Yeah,
Riccardo Patrese.
What a star. What an absolute... And actually, I thought that was really, really impressive that one of the older guys there, because you've got some young, light and really good karting guys, fantastic that with that competition, Riccardo Patrese sets the fastest lap. Oh, we salute you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the clip of Riccardo Patrese taking his wife for a spin in a Honda Civic Type R, I believe, on a lap of Jerez, you have to see it right now.
It's on YouTube. You can either search for it on YouTube or, better still, go to GarethJones.tv, go to the Gareth Jones on Speed pages, and we'll put the link up there for it. Might even put the video up there, actually, for a short while. Why not?
I might just say, talking about the karting, that one of the things that struck me before we actually got into the race itself was at the driver's briefing, when everyone is standing around listening to the race organiser explaining what to expect of the drivers, the safety briefing, all this important stuff. And there's sort of a bit of an atmosphere of, what would you call it, sort of end of term.
Exactly, that's what I was about to say.
It's like sort of schoolboys.
Yeah. And we're listening, we don't really want to listen. We'd rather be making jokes with the drivers we're standing next to, wouldn't we?
Yeah, particularly the ones at the back. And I think that's encouraged by the fact that you've got a lot of professional drivers there, and they're sort of stepping back to, a little go-kart track. And so that encourages that slightly jokey air, and people, they're not all taking it 100% seriously. But there was one driver who, at the end of this briefing, when he says, are there any questions, there's one driver who puts his hand up and asks us a couple of questions, absolutely seriously, clarifying details about the flags, and think about the black flags, and about the preparation of the karts, and something to do with the pits. And it was Emanuele Pirro, the guy who's won Le Mans 5 times.
Yeah.
I mean
no wonder if he takes his game that seriously.
Exactly. Yeah. There you are. Yeah, there's nothing uncool about taking it really seriously.
He showed us all up, actually. Everyone was slightly embarrassed, like, oh yeah, we don't know about that until he mentioned it.
He's reminding you that, whilst in a way it is a bit of a light-hearted event for a lot of those guys, because it's racing under essentially, under so much less pressure, and with so much less in the way of expectations than they would normally have, and something that's not going to kill you also, to be frank. But it is still motorsport. People can still get hurt, and, even if it's just a broken something here or there, you're still getting hurt, and you've got to take it seriously.
Full respect to him. Yeah. And apart from all the racing drivers, the pro racing drivers and schmucks like us taking part, there was also one fella there. I was, first of all, absolutely chuffed to see that he was there, because, well, like us, he's a petrolhead, and I wanted to talk to him about cars, but I also really wanted to thank him for some of the fantastic noises him and his mates have made over the years. Nick Mason, drummer in Pink Floyd, a big Ferrari head, a bit of a tifosi, really.
And a couple of years ago, and actually more like maybe sort of 8 or 9 years ago, he published a fantastic book called Into the Red, I believe, which was essentially about some of the favourite cars in his collection, with a chapter on each car about driving it, a chapter about the car itself, and then an accompanying CD with recordings of all of those, of each of the cars, from inside the car, from outside the car, doing a lap of Silverstone. So it was a real book I would recommend if you could still find it.
And for a band like Pink Floyd, who've always used ambient sounds and recordings of things like Asdic and flies in the room and people having their breakfast, meshed in with the music that they record, it's no surprise that he did something like that, really. But anyway, Nick Mason was there, and I couldn't miss the opportunity to have a few words with him for Gareth Jones on Speed. So I asked him, how come he's such a big petrolhead?
The whole thing kicked off for me long before music, because my dad raced cars and made films about motor racing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a director, and he directed and wrote a history of motor racing for Shell, a sort of 5-part series. And so I was taking motor racing from when I was about 5 years old. That was the ultimate treat, and I'm afraid to say it still is.
And so, as soon as you got some money, which must have been, what year? 73 was at the point you got some real money. What was the first treat that you bought yourself in terms of a car?
Well, I suppose I'd kicked off my motoring career with 20 quid spent on an Austin 7. I had that for a long time. Then I went mad and spent 180 quid on a pre-war Aston Martin. The first sign of a record royalty was a Mini Cooper, and eventually a series of Lotus Elans and Land Plus 2 and things like that.
So you've really got it in your blood. If you start with a Cooper, then go straight for the works of Mr. Chapman, you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Then I eventually got round to the sort of first Ferrari, which was 275 GTB 4-cam.
So that's not any old Ferrari, really, is it?
No, it's a hell of a lot more work and trouble than a regular one. And finally, really, thanks very much to Dark Side the Moon and all those kind listeners who bought a copy in a pre-download age, now I'd just be looking at a sort of, an old Zephyr, I think. And I found the GTO and paid what was then a record price for it. And what was nice was that when I bought the car, I suddenly realised that it had a number plate change, but it was the car that I'd taken a picture of in 1963 when I'd gone to Goodwood with my dad, and he had a photographer's pass, and I'd taken this picture of a GTO coming through the chicane as a sort of ultimate car.
I know that feeling exactly. I bought a Lancia in exactly the same way. I didn't realise at the time it was the car I used to lust after as a child. Right. It's a deeply personal thing for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I've always bought with my heart rather than my head. The strange thing is, in many ways, the cars that one buys with the heart, you end up finding out are the ones that become the most valuable.
I remember recording a piece for television, a kids show I used to do called The Big Bang, where I did some wing walking.
Oh, yes.
And in one of the hangars where they stored these crunchy liveried Stearmans.
No longer crunchies. They would have since been the utterly butterly barnstormers, and now they're the Guino skincare.
And
somethings.
Weren't some of your cars parked in that hangar? Is this how you... I'm trying to remember where that was exactly.
It's out near Cirencester.
And so how many cars have you got now? Do you know?
No, not exactly, because it's not really... not only is it not very important, but also there are some cars that you're not sure whether they count as cars or not. So there's things like... the tub and the body for a Formula One Ram from 1983, which really will never run, but it looks like a car, and I'm still rather fond of it.
And it's safe in your hands.
Yeah, well, it is at the moment anyway, because it's upstairs. It's not even anywhere near a circuit.
And of all your cars, which is the favourite? Is it a Ferrari? Is it the 275 still? Do you still have it?
And I don't have a 275, but because I don't think you need a 275 and a 250 GTO. In fact, in many ways, once you've got a GTO, you don't need anything else anyway. But GTO tends to be the favourite, partly because it makes me look clever for having bought it originally, but mainly because it's such a well-balanced, great all-round car. And, no car is perfect. You can't use a GTO to get 4 people in and all the luggage, but it'll do 7 out of 10 things well, whereas most cars do 4 out of 10, let's say. So you can race it, finish third at Le Mans. You can't ask for much better than that. You can rally it. It's done a load of sort of long-distance rallies. I mean, it did the original Tour de France and things like that. And you can use it on the road. There's actually room to put some luggage in. There's more luggage in that than most supercars, most modern supercars.
I can't imagine what it'd be like to own the car of your dreams in the way that you do. I'm thrilled that you've managed to realise it, and the best thing is that you've done it through creating some fantastic tunes. Thank you very much, and atmospheres, I should say. Nick, privileged to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for your time. And listen, how's your team doing out there? Do you know where you are at the moment?
I'm fairly confident that we're rather close to the back, because we did have a wonderful sort of kid as the ringer who's got us started in about 5th or 6th on the grid, and suddenly it was discovered that he was too young to be insured with all these cruel big people, so he was suddenly scratched. There's a certain air of depression now hanging over the team, but we're trying to pull ourselves back.
Well, if you and I can finish in the top 15, I think we've done well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I was trying to think of some sort of Pink Floyd motorsport crossover puns. The best I could come up with is if you had someone who maintained one of your Ferraris and was a bit clumsy and was removing an axle and, you know, dropped it, you'd have to say to them, careful with that axle, Eugene. But that's about as close as I could get.
Yeah.
I will send you one of our recordings and a link to our site, and you can hear our interpretation of the Pink Floyd. Nick, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome. Look forward to hearing.
Nick Mason, rock and roll legend and motorsport legend, or certainly petrolhead legend.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Gareth Jones on Speed. If you want to know a little more about how we got on at the Johnny Herbert Karting Challenge 2008, Zog has prepared a rather elegant little video. We haven't made it available as a podcast, but you can see it from the new Gareth Jones on Speed Facebook fan page. So if you're on Facebook, search Gareth Jones on Speed, become a member, and you'll be able to see this. And we'll also make it available on our YouTube site as well, which is uk.youtube.com/GJ on Speed, or just search Gareth Jones on Speed Johnny Herbert Karting Challenge and you'll find it. That's it. Zog, thanks for taking part in the Johnny Herbert Karting Challenge.
Pleasure.
Yeah, it's true, really, isn't it?
Yes, we'll be doing that again.
We have a good life, don't we? And as a tribute to Nick Mason, you heard me mention it in the interview, here is a song I've written literally and recorded the week I met Nick Mason, just before I met him, especially for Gareth Jones on Speed. This one is called Fueling Nick's Ferraris, in the style, I hope, of Pink Floyd. This is the Punk Floyd. Say goodbye, Zog.
Goodbye.
Ta-ra from me as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the unveiling of the latest generation of Asimo, Honda's fully autonomous robot of the future. Our engineers have worked tirelessly to make advances in Asimo technology and in particular to enhance his speech capability. So, please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on stage, Asimo! Thank you, very kind. And I am delighted to say that Asimo will now speak to you.
The car wasn't running well this weekend. We had lots of problems with understeer. I'd like to thank everyone at the factory for working so hard. Maybe it wasn't our weekend. Definitely.
Excusez-moi, is he designed to be this boring?
Why has he got a beard?
Ain't that just a failed racing driver in a robot costume?
Ladies and gentlemen, please. Let's just forget about Asimo. I'll deal with you later, Button. Let's move on to our new generation Honda private jet, which, if you look overhead now, you will see being demonstrated by our guest pilot, Takuma Sato.
Contact the show on speed at GarethJones.tv. Get the lyrics, picture and more information from www.GarethJones.tv or subscribe for free at the iTunes Store. Gareth Jones on Speed is made by Beatspunk.